They gave her the rusted rifle as a joke. A woman in thrift store boots with no military badge, no rank, no sponsors. The instructors laughed before she even touched the trigger. But when she took her stance and landed the shot dead center at 800 yards, everything stopped. The crowd froze, and someone whispered, "That's not luck. That's training." The morning air at Blackstone Valley Tactical Camp was dry and sharp, slicing through the nerves of rookies and seasoned shooters alike. A banner flapped overhead. Annual Long-Distance Marksmanship Challenge, sponsored by ShareShot Optics. Dozens of competitors gathered, most with heavy-duty gear cases, branded uniforms, and polished confidence. In the middle of all this, she stepped down from the shuttle bus holding nothing but a battered rifle bag and a folded paper letter. Her jeans were dusty, her flannel shirt creased. No one even looked up. The man at the check-in table, clipboard in hand and sunglasses perched arrogantly on his head, gave her a quick glance and returned to chatting with a young influencer who was live streaming. "Ma'am, spectators register at the white tent," he muttered without turning. "I'm here to compete," she said softly, holding out the letter. He paused, sighed, and finally looked at her, his expression twisted. "This letter looks unofficial." "It's from Commander Raw," she replied. That name made him blink. Commander Raw wasn't just anyone. He was a retired sniper legend, and now sat on the board of the camp. The check-in man cleared his throat. "Just a minute." He called someone on the radio, spoke in hushed tones, then returned with a forced smile. "All right, Ms. Wells, Mara Wells, you've been added to the roster. You'll be in the open division, Range D. You'll be using whatever's in the communal rack. Good luck." He didn't mean it. At Range D, half a dozen shooters lined up with precision-tuned rifles on bipods. Spotters adjusted wind flags and scopes, murmuring numbers and corrections. Mara stood alone at the far end. Her issued rifle looked like it spent 10 years under someone's truck seat, scratched, greasy, the sling frayed. She inspected it silently and began her pre-shot ritual with a strange calmness that made the volunteer range assistant pause. He looked at her stance, the way she checked the bolt and sights. He opened his mouth, then thought better of it. Onlookers began to notice her, not because she stood out, but because she didn't seem rattled by standing out. A whisper floated down the line. Someone had dared her to show up. Another said she lost a bet. One competitor chuckled and leaned over to his buddy. "Think she knows which end is which." She laid down on the mat, adjusted her elbows, and began slow breathing exercises. The laughter continued. One of the judges snorted. "Is she meditating?" A whistle blew. The first round began. Competitors took aim one by one, their rounds cracking into the distance. Some striking the edge of the metal targets, a few bullseyes mixed in. Then came her turn. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate either. The wind picked up slightly, and without a spotter, she licked her thumb, held it out, and calculated correction in her head. She adjusted the scope, exhaled. The shot rang out like a needle through silence. A second passed, then the target camera zoomed in on her board. A perfect shot. Dead center. Not near, not close. Perfect. Everyone stopped. A few turned to confirm the screen. Someone dropped a pen. The tech running the tablet replayed the slow-motion footage. "Is that 800 yards? No wind flags, no bipod." "That's a freehand-supported prone," the assistant whispered. "That's not normal," one of the judges muttered. The elite shooter Clay Morrison, a sponsor, former Marine with 3 national placements, stood with his arms crossed, chewing gum. His smirk faltered. "Lucky shot," he said too loudly. Mara didn't respond. She sat back, reloaded calmly, and awaited instructions. But her hand briefly touched the small silver pendant around her neck, a smooth disc engraved with initials barely visible in the sun. Someone watching saw the gesture and mistook it for nerves. It wasn't. Across the field, a tall woman in military fatigues stepped out of a black SUV and watched the screen replay Mara's shot again. She narrowed her eyes. "No one outside special ops hits like that on their first round," she murmured. Not unless someone taught her, and someone had. But that name hadn't been spoken aloud in years. Not since he vanished during an operation with no official report. Not since the funeral without a body. And certainly not since the legacy he left behind had quietly faded. Until now. Back at the bench, Mara's fingers traced over the grip of the rifle. It wasn't the one she had trained with, not even close. But the rhythm, the weight, the breathing, those were hers. They'd been practiced under stars in silence for years. Her brother had said, "When the day comes, you won't need luck. You'll be ready." And today she was. The next shooter missed by 4 inches. No one laughed anymore. The whispers didn't fade after the first shot. They grew louder. One by one, heads turned as words spread across the range. Some leaned in to see her setup, expecting to find some trick, some device, some hidden tech. But there was nothing. Just a rusted rifle, a woman in dusty boots, and a stillness about her that didn't match the nerves around her. When the round 2 signal was called, the air was electric with expectation. Mara adjusted her position without fanfare. Her movements were efficient but unhurried, like muscle memory was doing the work her brain didn't need to. She closed her eyes for a second and let the world fall quiet. And then she fired. Another clean hit, not dead center, but close. Still tighter than anyone else that round. The crowd around the range began to swell. People who hadn't been watching Range D suddenly wandered over, murmuring about the woman with no team. Clade Morrison, now pacing, gave a mock shrug. "So she's good. Doesn't mean anything without consistency. Let's see how she handles a real weapon." He was half right. Inside the control tent, Major Della Royce watched the monitor with growing suspicion. She had trained elite shooters for 15 years. She knew what rookie luck looked like. This wasn't that. She pulled up Mara Wells's name on the digital roster, but the background info field was nearly blank. No military service. No academy record. No tournament history. Just a note that said, "Invited by Commander Raw." Direct approval. That made Royce sit up straighter. She picked up a radio. "Raw, did you vet this woman?" His reply came seconds later, calm and low. "Better than anyone here. Just watch." Out on the field, Mara sat cross-legged, her rifle resting on her lap as Tex prepped the next stage. She ignored the stares, the whispers. Her focus wasn't on them. It was on the skyline, the wind, the terrain. She studied it like a map she'd read 100 times. As she repositioned for the 600-yard round, her fingers brushed over the edge of her pendant again. That simple disc had traveled through deserts, mountains, and snowfields. Her brother had worn it under his uniform in Kandahar, and when his gear was returned to her, the pendant came with one note: "She's better than me. Get her ready." She hadn't wanted to be. After he died, she stopped shooting for almost 2 years. She packed her gear away, worked as a mechanic in a quiet county shop, ate alone, spoke less. Grief made her invisible, and in a way, she liked that. But then the call came. It was Commander Raw himself. "He trained you, didn't he?" he asked. "I haven't touched a rifle since he died," she said. "Then maybe it's time," Raw told her. "You owed him that much." So she trained again. Alone at first, then later in unofficial drills across abandoned hills and forgotten ranges. Always silent, always with purpose. Not to prove anything, but because she had once made a promise to her brother that she would show the world what patience and precision look like. Now, the world was watching. By the time she stepped up to the 3rd round, a wind-affected 700-yard shot, most of the audience was quiet. No more laughter, no more murmurs. Even the range officer adjusted his tone when announcing her name. "Mara Wells, Lane 5, you're up." She nodded once and got into position. This time, a sudden gust threw off a few shooters. Targets came back smeared to the left. Clay Morrison shook his head as he missed the center again. Mara exhaled slowly, adjusted her scope to account for wind, waited a beat longer than usual, and then took her shot. Ping. Right edge of the bullseye. A few competitors turned away in frustration. One mumbled, "She's sandbagging us." Another muttered, "Maybe she's ex-agency." A third just stood there stunned. But Mara didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. She simply stood, cleared her chamber, and walked to the bench. That restraint, quiet, controlled, unshaken, rattled people more than arrogance ever could. At that moment, one of the judges, an old vet with silver hair and sun-worn skin, stepped closer to Major Royce. "You see her shoulders," he said. "She shoots like someone who's carried more than rifles. That's posture from grief, from discipline. Someone trained her well." Royce nodded slowly. "That's what I'm afraid of." By lunch, Mara had placed in the top 3 in accuracy across all rounds so far. Her name started trending in the range's internal chat app. Phones came out. A blurry photo of her first shot had made it to a gun enthusiast's subreddit with the caption, "Who is Mara Wells?" Still, some refused to believe it. Clay Morrison approached her near the water tent, smirking. "Nice shooting, sweetheart, but flukes don't last forever." She looked at him calm, clear. "I don't need forever," she said. "Just one shot that counts." That answer hit him harder than a round ever could. He backed off with a forced laugh, but his ego had already cracked. Inside the observation tent, Roar smiled. "That's the voice of someone who doesn't shoot to win. She shoots to honor." And soon, the world would find out who exactly she was honoring. By the afternoon, the tone of the entire event had shifted. What began as a casual challenge peppered with mockery had become something else. Tense, serious, and electric. Mara Wells wasn't just holding her own. She was leading. Competitors who once chuckled in her direction now avoided eye contact. Some tried to pretend she wasn't there. Others whispered theories. Military background, black ops, even CIA. One man claimed she was a psychological plant meant to rattle the real contenders. But the people paying attention knew better. There was no game, no trick. Just precision and control, round after round. Still, not everyone accepted it. Clay Morrison, fuming from being bumped out of the top 3, stormed into the event tent where Major Royce sat with the oversight committee. "This isn't right," he snapped. "Because she's beating you." Royce didn't look up. "Because no one shoots like that without elite training. And I mean documented elite training. Where's her file?" Royce gestured to the screen showing Mara calmly cleaning her rifle at the bench. She was invited under Commander Roar's authority. Clay scoffed. Roar hasn't set foot in a competition in 5 years. "But his word still carries weight," Royce replied. "And right now, so does her performance. She's not even sweating." Royce looked up then, their voice colder. "Maybe you should be." Out at the range, Mara sat alone at the lunch station, slowly peeling an orange. It was something her brother used to do before every match. He said the smell helped keep his mind sharp. She had no idea if that was true, but she liked the memory. The scent helped her think. She looked up to see a young woman in a camp vest approaching shyly. "Miss Wells, I just wanted to say I've been watching, and it's kind of amazing." Mara smiled softly. "Thank you." The girl hesitated. "Are you former military?" "No," Mara said, then added, "but someone I loved was." She didn't need to say more. Before the next stage began, Mara returned to her assigned station. A new target configuration had been added, 5 targets of various sizes at varying distances. Only 1 round per target. No spotters, no second chances. Behind her, whispers buzzed again, not mocking this time. Nervous. Anticipatory. The announcer's voice cracked over the speaker. Each competitor will have 1 attempt at all 5 targets. This challenge simulates real-world sniper adaptability. Clay loaded his rifle with flair, calling attention to himself. Time to separate the train from the tourists. Mara didn't respond. She laid down, eyes scanning the terrain, the angles. She tilted her head slightly, wind calculating by instinct. When her turn came, she fired 5 times. Steady, even, controlled. The camera zoomed in. 4 bullseyes. One shot landed just outside the center on the farthest target. Still better than anyone else so far. The crowd erupted, not loud, but with gasps and murmurs of awe. Even the commentators watching the live feed sounded stunned. That far target. No one's hit it clean today. She just missed by an inch. Clay's turn came next. He struck 3 targets, missed a 4th, clipped a 5th. His face was rigid with frustration. His fans tried to cheer, but the energy was different now. More tense, less certain. And then came the announcement. Top scorers moving into tomorrow's precision finals. Mara Wells, Julian Kwan, and Clay Morrison. Clay's eyes went wide. She beat me into first. Yes, Royce confirmed over the loudspeaker. By 7 points, which means she sets the pace tomorrow. Back in the observation tent, Raw arrived just as this was announced. He watched the live feed with a calm face and arms crossed. Told you, he said to no one in particular. Major Royce turned to him. She's not just good, she's surgical. She's better than I ever was, Raw said plainly. Her brother taught her well. All I did was get her out of the way. Royce leaned forward. Are you going to tell her we know? She already knows we're watching. But she doesn't need recognition. What she needs is to finish this. For herself. That night, as the camp shut down and lights dimmed across the field, Mara sat on the cot in her tent, flipping through a weather notebook. Pages were filled with calculations, wind maps, corrections, her brother's notes from years of training. On one page, written in sharp pencil, it said, "If the day ever comes when they laugh at you, remember this. Precision beats noise. Always." She smiled faintly, then set the notebook aside and lay back, arms folded across her chest, eyes closed. She wasn't thinking about trophies or headlines. She was thinking about sunrise, about the last shot she had to take, and how she'd make it count. Not for applause, but for the one person who taught her that even quiet people can leave echoes that last forever. The final morning arrived with a chill in the air that didn't come from the weather. It was in the looks exchanged between competitors, in the uneasy silence among officials, and in the press cameras now parked along the edge of the range. The event had grown beyond sport. It was now a spectacle. And at the center of it stood Mara Wells, in the same dusty jeans, same worn boots, same quiet expression. The precision finals were designed to test more than skill. Each shooter would face 3 stations. 1 long-range wind-compensated shot, 1 timed 5-target relay, and 1 final wildcard shot with an unfamiliar weapon chosen at random. Mara drew the second shooting order, right after Clay Morrison. His name was now said with less certainty, less admiration. The favorite had been shaken, and the one they laughed at had become the one to beat. As Clay stepped into his first position, he put on a show, checking the wind, flexing his hands, glancing at the crowd. He fired with controlled aggression, hitting solid marks across the board. Applause followed, polite but not passionate. The crowd was waiting for someone else. When Mara stepped into her lane, she didn't look at the audience. She didn't adjust her posture for the cameras. She placed her brother's notebook beside her, open to the page with his final note. Calm hands. Clear breath. Know your shot before you take it. The first shot required adjusting for side wind and elevation shift. Mara made no visible calculations, but her delay was longer than usual. Clay watched smugly from the sideline. Then she fired and hit dead center. The second round was a time drill, 5 targets in 12 seconds. Most miss one or rush their cadence. Mara breathed once, rolled her shoulder, and squeezed off 5 rounds with metronomic rhythm. 5 targets down. No misses. 11.2 seconds. A roar rose from the crowd, real, resonant, not for shock, not for drama, for skill, for grace, for the quiet power they're all watching unfold in front of them. And then came the wild card round. The weapon drawn was an old Dragunov, an unreliable Soviet-era sniper rifle with a heavy pull and poor optics. Even seasoned shooters groaned. Clay smirked. Good luck with that antique. Mara approached the bench, running her hand along the rifle with the familiarity of someone who'd seen worse. Her brother had trained her on all kinds of weapons, especially old ones, scavenged ones. The ones that didn't forgive mistakes. She adjusted the iron sight manually, squinted at the distant silhouette target, then closed her eyes. When she opened them again, everything went still. She fired. The shot cracked through the cold air, and the crowd held its breath as the target camera zoomed in. Dead center. Keenest hit of the entire event. Clay stared blankly. Judges exchanged glances. The final scores lit up on the board. Mara Wells, first place. The moment paused, then applause broke out, loud and rising. Major Royce stepped to the microphone, her voice firm. By unanimous judgment, and with the highest total score in camp history, Mara Wells is this year's long-distance marksmanship champion. People rushed to her, media, competitors, even former doubters. But Mara didn't lift her hand in victory. She looked down at her brother's notebook, then quietly closed it and tucked it back into her bag. Clay approached, bitter and stiff. He forced a handshake, then muttered, "You know they're going to ask who trained you." Mara met his eyes calmly. "Does it matter? I showed up. I shot. You all saw." From behind the crowd, Commander Rawl walked forward. "For what it's worth," he said to Mara, "he would have been proud." "Your brother?" Clay froze. "You mean?" he began. Raw nodded. "Yeah, that Miller. The ghost." The name hit like a dropped rifle. Everyone in the military community knew it. Nathan Miller. SEAL sniper. Unmatched record. Lost in an operation no one talked about. Now his sister had carried that legacy with shots that shattered doubt and rewrote the story they all thought they knew. Later that evening, Mara stood alone at the now empty range. The light was golden, her pendant lay warm against her chest. A young girl approached, one of the volunteers from earlier. "Miss Wells, can I ask, will you be coming back next year?" Mara smiled. "Maybe, but next time, I'll be behind the line. Not to compete, to teach." The girl beamed. "You'd be amazing." Mara looked out at the far targets, her voice soft. "I'm not here to be amazing. I'm here to keep a promise." The camera would cut there for the ending, but the real story would continue, not in records, but in every quiet person who watched and realized they didn't need to be loud to be strong. That precision, patience, and purpose can outshoot arrogance. That sometimes the one they underestimate is the one who never misses.